In 1954, a young psychologist named Leon Festinger infiltrated a small cult who believed that the world would end on December 21st of that year. They wanted to know how the members of the group would respond when, God willing, the world would continue to spin. The group's leader, whom they called Marion, had told her faithful that a flying saucer would come and pick them up and bring them to safety. Many of her followers had quit their jobs, sold their homes, and given away all their money in anticipation of the end. And by 4:45 in the morning, when the spaceship had not arrived, Marion announced that she had a new vision. The world had been spared because of her small band's unwavering faith. Instead of raging at Marion for destroying their lives or losing faith in her because of her false prophecy, amazingly, the members of her group became even more devoted to her, heading out to share the news of the miracle they had fashioned. And Dr. Festinger discovered why. It was because of a powerful psychological force he called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a state of tension that occurs when a person is forced to confront two conflicting ideas that are psychologically inconsistent. For example, I like to think of myself as a pretty good guy who cares about others and tries to do the right thing. And then, well, let's suppose I lose my temper and I yell at Amy. Now I have dissonance. I'm a good guy, but good guys don't yell at their spouses. So how do I resolve that inner conflict? Well, one option is to admit that maybe I'm not such a good guy, that I made a mistake and I did a bad thing, and so I have to apologize and ask forgiveness. But that's hard. So instead, I settle that inner conflict by pretending it didn't happen. I mean, I didn't really yell. I mean, I might have gotten a little passionate, but, passionate isn't yelling. So, what are you upset about? Or I can resolve the tension by shifting the blame. Well, if she hadn't set me off, if she hadn't let me down, if she hadn't ignored me, well, then I wouldn't have gotten passionate. So dissonance creates all kinds of challenges for us. We justify all kinds of bad behaviors. We remain loyal to people who are dishonest or hurt or abuse us. We cling to conspiracy theories and fall prey to prejudice. We lose our capacity to see the world as it really is, and instead construct all kinds of distorted perceptions so we see what we want to see. And never have we seen cognitive dissonance play out more in the world than in the aftermath of October 7th of last year. On that Black Shabbat, thousands of trained terrorist fighters from Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and their followers invaded Israel. Pouring over the border, they committed hundreds of cruel, murderous acts of pure viciousness. They murdered children in front of their parents, parents in front of their children, and slaughtered entire families. They committed the most wicked acts of sexual violence, not only brutal acts of rape, but perverse desecration and mutilation of the people they violated and murdered. They recorded themselves committing wholesale murder in cold blood, laughing as they slaughtered hundreds and fled by broadcast their foul deeds in real time. They took more than 250 people hostages, including infant children and the elderly. The news of this terrorist massacre instantly produced a tsunami of cognitive dissonance. For decades, the cause of Palestinian liberation has garnered deep support in the academy and among those who see the Palestinians as innocent victims of Israeli oppression, and view the struggle for Palestinian freedom as intersecting with other campaigns to raise up marginalized and oppressed people. But now, those people, compassionate people, people who seek justice and right and good, had to face the fact that the people they championed deliberately committed mass murder and gruesome atrocities on an almost incomprehensible scale. So how do you resolve that dissonance? Well, one option is to acknowledge that perhaps they had misunderstood the Palestinian people. They might have looked to Palestinian public opinion polls from the previous June that showed that 70% of Gazans said that they support or strongly support armed attacks against Israeli civilians inside Israel, or that only 28% supported a two-state solution. They might have thought to condemn the acts, declaring what occurred to be immoral and evil, full stop. But that would have required a measure of self-awareness and truth-telling that's hard. And so some tried other ways to resolve the dissonance. At first, some denied what happened. Queen Rania of Jordan told CNN journalist Christiane Amanpour that there was no evidence of Hamas atrocities. Denial drove others to tear down the posters of captured hostages, and some even blamed the IDF, claiming that it was not Hamas, but Israeli tanks and helicopters that killed their own people. Others responded with all kinds of yes, but. Yes, but Israel is an illegitimate state. Yes, but Israel occupies Palestinian land, and so Hamas is entitled to resistance by any means necessary. And for others, their yes, but actually blamed Israel for the victimization they suffered. In a joint statement from the Palestine solidarity groups at Columbia University titled "Oppression Breeds Resistance," published just 2 days after the attack, the students wrote in bold letters, "The weight of responsibility for the war and casualties undeniably lies with the Israeli extremist government and other Western governments, including the U.S. government, which fund and staunchly support Israeli aggression, apartheid, and settler colonialism." Faculty at Columbia backed them up with their own letter published a few weeks later, saying one could regard the events of October 7th as an occupied people exercising a right to resist violent and illegal occupation. Still others said, yes, but what Israel does is much worse. What could be worse? Genocide. Brazilian President Lula da Silva compared Israel's war to the Holocaust, saying the only historical equivalent was when Hitler decided to kill the Jews. What's happening in the Gaza Strip isn't war, it's genocide, he said. It's not a war of soldiers against soldiers, it's a war between a highly prepared army and women and children. Never mind that Hamas's explicit aim, as stated in their charter, is genocide, either the complete subjugation or erasure of Jews from the land. Their charter declares the hour of judgment shall not come until the Muslims fight the Jews and kill them. For so many, the only way to reduce their dissonance is to accuse Israel of the crime those they champion actually committed. Some dealt with their dissonance in silence, refusing to acknowledge the facts before them. In the weeks following October 7th, as the sexual violence perpetrated that day came to light, feminist groups and those who advocate for victims of sexual violence were silent. Sheryl Sandberg, who helped produce the documentary Screams Before Silence, said, "If you believe that October 7th was resistance," and I want to be super clear, I don't, all of a sudden when you hear there was rape, that does not fit into your model of resistance at all. You can say, wait a second, maybe I'm wrong, or maybe it's not that simple. Or you can say, this doesn't fit into my narrative, therefore it didn't happen. And that should scare all of us. But by insisting that the world condemn the horrific sex crimes of October 7th, Israel was accused in an open letter signed by more than 2,000 women of weaponizing the issue of rape. The letter states, "We repudiate the attempts by the Israeli government and its apologists to delegitimize our work. Accusations of sexual assault have also been wielded as a tool of war and as an often lethal weapon of racism and colonialism. In its current war against the people of Gaza, the Israeli government has chosen to weaponize the issue of sexual violence for political outcome." When the facts don't fit our narrative, when the truth does not comport with what we want the truth to be, we lie. We lie to ourselves and each other. We find any narrative, even a false narrative, that tells us the story we want to hear. But lying to ourselves can bring serious consequences. We don't want to believe that we need to change our lifestyle, and so we tell ourselves the doctors don't know what they're doing. Science isn't settled, and even if I change my lifestyle, it won't make a difference anyway. We justify our bad choices by shifting blame and responsibility. It's not that I'm underperforming at work, it's that they play favorites and judge me unfairly. When we're not able to face up to the truth of who we are and the truth of what we do, we can end up destroying our careers, our relationships, and our lives. Dostoevsky wrote in his masterwork, The Brothers Karamazov, "The man who lies to himself and listens to his own lie comes to such a pass that he cannot distinguish the truth within him or around him, and so loses all respect for himself and for others. And having no respect, he ceases to love. And in order to occupy and distract himself without love, he gives way to passions and coarse pleasures and sinks to bestiality and his vices, all from continual lying to other men and to himself." We have to stop lying. We have to stop lying to ourselves and allowing others to lie to us. We have to tell the truth, no matter how hard it is to hear. We have to tell the truth that beginning with the rule of King Saul 3,000 years ago, the Jewish people were a nation that claimed the land of Israel as their home. Over the centuries that followed, that has never, ever changed. Whether the land was controlled by the Jewish people or by invading colonial armies from afar, Assyria, Babylonia, Persia, Greece, Rome, Byzantium, Arabia, European crusaders, or the Ottoman Turks, it was and remains the homeland of the Jewish people, who have lived in greater or lesser numbers there throughout the millennia. And as peoples throughout the world in the 19th century organized around their national identities, so too did our people. We have to tell the truth that Zionism is not a dirty word, but that Zionism is the progressive movement of the Jewish people for liberation and national self-determination in our original indigenous homeland, the land of Israel. To claim that Zionism is a colonial enterprise is ridiculous. In order for a nation to express colonial ambition, they must have a homeland from which they extend their reach. Arab colonialism began in Arabia and spread across the Middle East and North Africa. How else did the peoples of North Africa come to speak Arabic as their native language? French colonialism spread from France. Thus, you have native French speakers in places as diverse as Vietnam and Haiti. We have to tell the truth that, as Dara Horn writes, schools and universities lose their credibility and their ability to teach when educators let lies undermine learning. We have to tell the truth that connection to the land and people of Israel is an inherent and inseparable part of what it means to be Jewish. We have to tell the truth that the state of Israel has the same right to exist as any other nation state on earth. We have to tell the truth that in spite of our dreams, our homeland could have been a place where we hoped to share the land in a state of collaboration and mutual respect, but that more than 75 years of unrelenting terrorism and warfare forced our people to build a truly formidable military and technical prowess so that we could protect and defend ourselves. We have to tell the truth that the reason millions of people in Gaza live behind massive border walls and blockades at sea is because of the insistent threat to life and limb posed by the menace of Hamas fundamentalism and that of their sponsors in Iran. We have to tell the truth that morality dictates that if someone is coming to kill you, you have to defend yourself, even if it means killing your pursuer. But we also have to be willing to confront the truths that are hard to hear. We have to tell the truth that as Israel fought for its independence, Palestinians suffered a catastrophe in 1948 that resulted in the mass displacement of more than 700,000 people, many uprooted from places that they had called home for centuries. We also have to tell the truth that too often Israeli Arabs and Palestinians have suffered discrimination and inequality, too often treated with scorn and outright bigotry and persecution. We also have to tell the truth that Israel's settler movement has often robbed Palestinians of their lands and their dignity, committing gross acts of hate and wanton acts of aggression and terrorism with ever-increasing frequency and impunity. And at the same time, we also have to tell the truth that Tal Becker told the International Court of Justice, that Hamas has systematically and unlawfully embedded its military operations, militants, and assets throughout Gaza, within and beneath densely populated civilian areas. It has built an extensive warren of underground tunnels for its leaders and fighters, several hundred miles in length throughout the Strip, with thousands of access points and terrorist hubs located in homes, mosques, UN facilities, schools, and perhaps most shockingly, hospitals. We have to tell the truth that Hamas built a strategy designed to maximize the suffering of the people they are supposed to protect, that they steal the provisions and aid designated for the larger population, and that as a result of that strategy, thousands of innocent people have died, and millions are suffering from lack of food, clean water, and access to health care. We have to tell the truth that this war could have ended months and months ago had Hamas agreed to return every one of the hostages it abducted and agreed to surrender and lay down its arms. We have to tell the truth that this war could have ended months and months ago had Hezbollah not launched nearly daily attacks on Israel with almost 9,000 missiles and instead chosen to live in peace. We have to tell the truth. We have to tell the truth no matter how difficult it is to hear or to face. We have to tell the truth to ourselves about ourselves, and we have to tell the truth to people who insist on living in delusion so that they can resolve their cognitive dissonance, and those who invent narratives that distort reality to satisfy their need for confirmation. We cannot, should not, and ought not tolerate leaders who refuse to be truthful with us or anyone. We cannot tolerate our inclination to deceive ourselves. As psychologists Carol Tarvis and Elliot Aronson write, mindless self-deception, like quicksand, can draw us deeper into disaster. It blocks our inability to see even our errors, let alone correct them. It distorts reality, keeping us from getting all the information we need and assessing issues clearly. It prolongs and widens rifts between lovers, friends, and nations. It keeps us from letting go of unhealthy habits. As we begin to write the next chapter in the story of our lives, let us resolve this year to tell ourselves and each other the truth, and only the truth, and nothing but the truth. May we muster the inner strength to face our dissonances with honesty and integrity while cultivating curiosity and humility. And may we lift up truth to its rightful place, the divine place in our world where it belongs, among our priorities and our values, so that we build a real world, an authentic world of loving kindness, hope, goodness, and peace. Shabbat Shalom. May we all be sealed for a new year of truth and of peace.